guys, it's Julia, and for today's video I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up where I tell you guys all the books that I read throughout the month of September and a synopsis and my thoughts and feelings and things on those books. So yeah, I should mention this now because I do it for all my wrap-ups. Technically, I film my wrap-ups about 3 to 5 days before the end of the month. So as soon as I film my wrap-up, I start reading for the next month. So technically, I read the full 30-31 days, depends how long the month is. It's just I start early and I finish early. So I think I should mention that because I'll be saying some of these books were read at the end of August or something, but I just read the same amount of days. It's just it overlaps a little bit. But yeah, so I thought I should mention that. And overall for a reading month, I think it was really good. I read 16 books this month, which is not as much as it is not as much as I usually read, but it is still a lot, and I'm still really happy with the variety. I got some contemporary, I read some fantasy, which is weird, paranormal, thrillers. So I'm really excited to talk about everything. So yeah, let's get right into it because it's gonna be really long as usual, my wrap-up. So yeah. The first book I read this month was Crank by Ellen Hopkins. This is a book about a girl named Christina, and she is kind of portrayed as the perfect girl, the perfect student, the perfect whatever, and she gets introduced to the drug meth and it kind of destroys her life, and we watch her as she gets addicted and it ruins her life. And basically Ellen Hopkins writes most of her books in verse, so it's like 500 pages of this kind of writing. And I will say my thoughts on this book, I really liked the writing style. I always enjoy Ellen Hopkins writing. It's beautiful, it's really nice, and it's really good for these kind of books where they're dealing with more serious topics. So I think it's nice reading them in verse. I didn't love this though. I did have problems with the characters. The characters really lacked, and the book was entertaining in a way, but at the same time the plot was really messy and things were kind of everywhere, and I just overall didn't enjoy it very much. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I also have a review for this if you want to hear more in depth. I will have my review playlist linked down below because I'm going to sound very repetitive in this video from saying I did a review on that because I did a lot of reviews this month. So I will have my playlist for all my reviews linked down below so you guys can check out the reviews if you want to know more. So next, I actually marathoned a trilogy, and this month I didn't expect to do this. I did this before the month even started, and yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it overlaps and I read the same amount of days. It's just starting early and finishing early. But I read the Penryn and the End of Days trilogy by Susan E. The first book is called Angel Fall, and essentially it is a post-apocalyptic angel story, and we follow a girl named Penryn, and her sister gets taken away by these angels, and these aren't good angels, they're not. And her sister gets taken away, so she kind of goes looking for her and figuring out everything, and she stumbles upon a fairy whose wings were cut off, and she kind of helps him, and yeah. And I loved this book. It was really excellent. It was great. The writing was well done. It had a really raw, and the atmosphere was really nice. The characters I loved so much. Penryn has become one of my favorite female leads like ever. Raffi was good. I liked him, especially in this book. The other ones he wasn't really there that much, but I really loved him in this book. And just Otis and all these other characters are fantastic, and the characters were fantastic. The plot was, I just wasn't really into it all the time, and it didn't grab me. Like, it did grab me, but not as much I would have liked to, because I don't usually read from this genre, so it was kind of weird. So it was kind of weird reading from this genre, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I really recommend this trilogy. But I will say, if you have read this book and you didn't like it and are thinking about continuing, you probably shouldn't, because this is kind of one of the best book in the series. The best book in the series. So if you didn't like the first one, then you probably won't like the rest. But this book was fantastic, and I gave it like a 4.25 out of 5, so I really enjoyed it. For the sequel, which was World After, I did feel this had a really strong start, and it was great all the way through, but our main male lead wasn't present, and it did feel like a little bit of a filler book, but at the same time, I kind of liked it like a lot. So it's interesting how that works, but I really liked it. It was a continuation. It was great. A lot of things happened. I ended up actually giving this a 4.5, so yeah, but thinking back on it, Angel Fall was probably the best one, but I really, really did enjoy this too. Then we had the last book, which was End of Days, and this book has a lot of controversy surrounding it because this book series was supposed to be extended longer, and instead everyone felt like this book was rushed. And I will say I did like it. The ending was, yes, a little bit rushed, and I did have some unanswered questions, but I still overall enjoyed it. I do have a review for all of these books. I put them all up in a row, and I read one book, I read one of these a day. So I read Angel Fall one day, World After the second day, and then I read this. And then every day, as soon as I finished it, I'd film a review, and then they were just going up like day after day, but they were pre-filmed, but whatever. So I did enjoy this. I still gave it a 4.25. It's just the ending felt a little bit rushed, and I did have some unanswered questions, but overall I enjoyed the story and how the trilogy, I just enjoyed the trilogy. I just enjoyed it. So next I picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, and this is the first book in this new series that she's writing, and this is essentially a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it is also a fantasy novel. So essentially we follow a girl named Feyre, and she goes hunting in the woods because she has to help her family out and everything, and she kills a wolf and she brings it back, and turns out this wolf was actually a fairy, and you're not supposed to kill fairies. So things happen, and this book has a lot of hype, and it was really good. This book, I was so surprised. I really didn't think I was gonna like this because I haven't read anything by Sarah J Maas before other than this, and I just really didn't think I was gonna like it. It didn't sound like something I was interested in. I heard there was a love triangle, and I was like, I ain't about that, and I just wasn't sure how I was gonna like it. But I did get I didn't want to read the physical one, so I got the ebook on Overdrive, and I read that, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. Her writing was fantastic. I really enjoyed the writing. The characters were good. I liked Feyre at the beginning, but as the book kind of went on, I was like I didn't like her as much. And then Tamlin I really liked, and the other male, he was interesting. I don't know how I feel about him, but I just really enjoyed it. The plot was interesting. Everything kept you going. It's just, I don't have a reason why I didn't give it a 5 out of 5. I really have been thinking about boosting it up to a 5 out of 5, but at the same time, I loved it, but I didn't like that. But I wasn't invested all the time. It's just, I just don't know. And I did give it what did I give it? I did give it a 4.25 out of 5, and it was really good, and I can't wait for the next book. I need the next book. I can't wait for the next book. It was fantastic. It was great. I also did a review for that one, by the way, if you want to check that out. The next book I read was Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan, and this book is about two boys, both by the name of Will Grayson, and we follow both their perspectives, one written by John and one written by David, and we both follow them going through their lives, and they kind of intertwine in the middle. So yeah, and I did do a review on this as well. Did I do a review for every book? I think almost, but I did enjoy this. It was entertaining. I didn't like the first Will Grayson that we were introduced to, which was John's Will Grayson. I didn't like him. I didn't even know which one, which author wrote which one at first, but I didn't like the first Will Grayson. I thought he was boring. The second Will Grayson was definitely my favorite, and then as the book went on, their lives intertwined, I started to like the other Will Grayson, but he was so boring, I wanted to skip his parts. But I really did like the other Will Grayson and all the other characters. The writing was good. I liked how they intertwined it, but I liked David Levithan's writing a lot more. John Green's writing wasn't that great in this. I was really surprised by that, but I did still enjoy it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The thing I read was Hold Me Closer by David Levithan. This is the companion novel to Will Grayson, and in the Will Grayson book, there is this character named Titan Cooper, and you see him as he's making this play about himself, and it's mentioned a lot. Little snippets are in there, but this is the whole play. It's pretty short, and it's just a play, and I just picked it up with Will Grayson. As soon as I finished it, I went to this, and I thought it was a nice companion. It was a nice addition to the story, and I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would, but I still liked this story. I still liked Tiny Cooper, but it wasn't that great, but it was still decent, and I think it was a good companion, and I liked how they had this, I just liked how they did this companion. It was nice, the addition, because the play was talked about so much that I just needed it. So yeah, and it was a 3.5 out of 5. So yeah. Next book I read was a new release, and this one is very, very well talked about, and that is Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. This came out on September 1st, and I picked this up like a couple days before the release date. Like, what? Why? And then I read it like, I don't know, mid-month or something. My back hurts. Oh my god. So this book is about a girl, and she is allergic to everything, so she is stuck in her house. She can't leave. She can't go anywhere. She's there. She's stuck there. And then they get new neighbors, and that kind of just... There's a boy that moves in, and that just like inspires her and whatnot. So that's the premise. I did enjoy this book overall. I did do a full review, which there's a lot to talk about with this. Surprisingly, considering it took me like 3 hours to read, but I did very much enjoy it. It was not what I thought it was gonna be. It was good. It was just that some things were very unrealistic, and I just couldn't believe. And there was insta-love in this. There was this certain line that was said, and I was like, are you kidding me? Insta-love, insta-love. But some things were just very unrealistic, but it's still very different. And the twist was good. I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's so blah, blah, blah. I didn't. But it was still good, and I still enjoyed it. It was very surprising, and I still liked it. The writing was very well done, and I was really pleased, and I liked the boy, and I liked they were really cute with emailing each other and writing on the windows and things, so I did enjoy it. It's a 3.75 out of 5. Next book I read was Faking Normal by Courtney C. Stevens. There's trigger warnings for self-harm, rape, and abuse, so if any of those topics offend you, I would skip over this part, or just don't pick this book up if those topics are offensive to you or they affect you in a certain way. So yes, but essentially we follow this girl, and her name, what's her name? Alexi. And basically something happened to her in the summer, and we start the novel off with her at this kind of acquaintance, like they were family friends. His name is Bodhi, and they're going to his mom's funeral, and she starts talking with him, and Bodhi moves in with her family, and they start to form a bond. They've both been through a very, very tough time, so we follow them both growing as people and talking about their problems, and it was good, but it is not as good for me personally as the hype was for it. Like, there's not that much hype, but there is on like there's on Goodreads and on blogs and stuff. On BookTube, not as much. I know Jessie talked about it, that's why I picked it up, but it wasn't that great. The characters I did like, but I liked Bodhi. He's probably my favorite character in this whole book. Some little things I didn't like. Again, there's a review. Well, I did film a review, but I don't know if I'm going to put it up. But it's just, I enjoyed, the writing was average, and the plot wasn't that, I didn't enjoy it that much, unfortunately. It was just kind of okay for me. I gave this a 3.25 out of 5 stars. So yeah. I have so much to say. Oh my gosh. This is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian Flynn. I should start saying Gillian Flynn because I'm pretty sure it's Gillian Flynn, because I watched reviews with her, like author interviews, I mean, and they said her name was Gillian Flynn, so I assume it's Gillian Flynn. But Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This had trigger warnings for self-harm. Don't pick it up if that affects you, because it's pretty damn severe, so don't do that. This is short, but font's little, so that pissed me off. But it is a thriller, and it is about a reporter named Camille, and she goes back to her hometown to investigate this crime that's been going on. And essentially a year ago or so, a little girl was killed, and her teeth are pulled out, and just recently that happened again. Another little girl was killed and her teeth were yanked out, so it was the same MO, so they assume it was the same person, and she goes back to her hometown to gather details for a report or a newspaper article or something like that. And yeah, it's a thriller, and it's really good. Well, it wasn't fantastic. I wasn't invested the whole time. This one definitely was a bit on the slower side. I did do a full review for this as well, if you're wondering, but I did enjoy it very much. I did. The more I think about it, the more I enjoy it. Like, the more I think about it, the more I realize how good it was. But I didn't enjoy it like at first, but thinking about it through the rest of the month, I think I would boost the rating a little bit. But it was just a little slow, but I think the outcome, I did catch half the twist, very proud, but the outcome wasn't as, like, the whole concept, yes, is very interesting, and really keeps you reading and everything, but I didn't love it, and it just lacked a little bit for Gillian Flynn. It was her debut, so it wasn't as great as her writing in her other books that I read from her, but it was still decent, and her characters are not lovable, so don't expect that from her. Her characters aren't lovable, they're not supposed to be, and it was a good book. It was, but it was definitely not my favorite from her. Definitely not. And I ended up giving this a 3.25 out of 5. Book I read was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the first book in the Harry Potter series, which is obviously about a wizard named Harry, and a boy named Harry Potter, and he discovers he is a wizard, and he goes to the school of Hogwarts for learning to become more of a wizard, and he makes friends, and there's these things, and yes. So I haven't read this series before, so this was my first time reading it, and I did enjoy this first book. It was good. The writing really surprised me. It was good. It was interesting. I wish we were at Hogwarts longer, but we weren't. So I'm really looking forward to the second book. I am looking forward to picking up the second one. I did like Harry, I did like Hagrid, I did like everybody, but it wasn't like, it was good. Trust me, it was good, but it wasn't, I think it could have had a little bit more to it, and I just think as the series progresses, I'm going to enjoy it more, because I heard the books get a bit darker and more serious, which I'm looking forward to, because it did seem like a little bit childish. Not childish, but it did seem a little bit like I just wanted a little more darkness and mysterious things going on, which I heard like comes to life in the rest of the series. So I did overall enjoy it. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5, and yes. The next book I'm going to show you is one book that I did not enjoy this month, like, at all. That was Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book is about a girl, and she moves to a new town to like get a fresh start with her mom, and then she realizes, or she discovers, that her neighbors are aliens. Read Jennifer L. Armentrout's White Hot Kiss series, and Dark Elements trilogy, and I really enjoyed those. They were fantastic, definitely better than this. And I was really surprised about this, because I look at the ratings, especially for the people who I follow, and it's like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 in stars, and I'm just like, oh. And it was entertaining, I will give you that, and I was laughing a lot because it's so cheesy and like ridiculous that I was just smiling and laughing. Like, it's definitely like a fun read, and I wouldn't read it because you want to read some literature masterpiece or because you want to discover things. Just there's a lot of quotes because it was just funny. Like, it was so cheesy, and I marked things off when I laugh or smiles, so there was a lot of those, and some things were funny, and I did like our main character, how she was a book blogger. That was cool. Damon was a total ass. I didn't see how everyone loved him. I did, like, obviously he was attractive the way he was described, and I kind of liked him a bit near the end, but at the same time I was like, boy, you piss me off. And it took like the whole book for them to get their little feelings out. What is that? And it was just ridiculous. And I haven't even read Twilight or seen the movies, and I still saw like those obvious Twilight references, like when he watches her when she sleeps. Someone was like watching her at one point when she's sleeping, and I'm like, Twilight. I just, the basic things that people know about Twilight were in here. I'm like, the writing wasn't that great, the characters weren't lovable. I just thought, it's not really worth for me to continue. I maybe will, most likely not, but if I'm looking for something like kind of silly and that will make me laugh, then I might pick up the next book. But overall, I just didn't like it, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5, and that's not that low, but still, I just didn't like it. And next, this is actually a graphic novel that I read, and that is In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang, and this is essentially about a girl, and she gets kind of into this online game, and she gets into this online game. I just hit myself. She gets into this online game and stuff, and she learns things, she goes through things, etc. And I did very much, and she goes through things, etc. And basically, I will say the art style is beautiful. I love the art style. I love like the color palette of everything. It was very cute, some things in the story, and I just overall really liked the color palette, but the actual plot was a bit underwhelming, and I don't feel that much happened, but the art style was still really nice, and just not that much happened. It was a bit under my expectation, like it just didn't fulfill those expectations considering this is so talked about, but You know, if I think about it, just art. I just liked the art. That's about it. But it was cute, and there was some nice little lessons, but overall it was a bit underwhelming. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Now is a book that took me like 8 days to read. That is very long for me. It does not take me 8 days to read a book. A book this size, about 500 pages, 550 pages, it usually would take me like 3 or 4 days to read, depending. School has been busy, so I didn't read as much as I usually do. But it is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. It's the last book by her that I've had to read. And I am going to be doing a review on this soon, so then I'll have all the Gillian Flynn books reviewed. But this book is about a man and his wife goes missing on their fifth year anniversary, and you know, they kind of, you know, these kind of things, they first suspect the husband, and it's just about them unraveling the story. And you go back, you are in present time with the husband, and then you are also reading Amy's journal, which is the wife. You're reading her journal like from a week or a couple days before when she was taken, like before she was taken, or wherever she went, I don't know. And this book is very slow, so if you're looking for something fast, not this. I did find it interesting. The reveal was very interesting. Amy is one of the most messed up characters I've ever read about in my life, and she's fantastic. And the guy was fantastic. Every character in her books are not lovable, but these characters were fantastic. I didn't like them. It's just, they were just great for screwed up characters, if that makes sense. And it was very slow, and at times I didn't really enjoy it, but it did start to pick up, and I did really start getting into it. And over time, I just kind of, the reveal was just good. It was good, and the characters were so screwed, but it was just a really interesting book, and I wouldn't highly recommend it like best thriller ever, but it was very, very good, and it was great, and it was definitely better than The Sharp Objects. And so yes, and I gave this a 4 to a 4.5, so technically I'm just gonna say 4.25 out of 5. Did very much enjoy it, very much, but I can't really think of anything bad to say about it, and except that it was very, very slow. But yes, I read another graphic novel, and that is V for Vendetta by Ellen Moore and David Lloyd. And this is, if you haven't heard of V for Vendetta, it is about a guy, and he has this mask on, and he's like a villain. And okay, is this page spoilery or inappropriate? Okay, so it is kind of like a more comic looking graphic novel, and I did want to love this more. Hey, I have a bookmark at the end of it. Are you kidding me? Finally, good. Yay, I found a bookmark. It was okay. Like, I did really like the V from the, you know, he was the masked dude. I did like him. He was interesting, and I thought the story was very gripping at first, and you can really get into it. But over time, it just felt the violence was unnecessary, and I just, for being labeled as one of the best graphic novels of all time, I was a little bit disappointed. It's just, some things were very unnecessary, and sometimes the story was so boring and hard to follow, and we were always going between different perspectives and different things, and I was like, what is happening? And I just wasn't caring for it sometimes, so I just overall thought it was alright, and I gave it a 3 out of 5. So yeah, the last book I read this month, I'm going to be doing a review on this probably soon, and that is You by Carolyn Kepnes. This is about a guy named Joe, and he basically works at a bookstore, and he sees this girl named Beck walk in, and he kind of becomes obsessed with her and is very interested, and he starts stalking her and going to her house, hacking her email, things like that. And this book is one of the best books I read this month, one of them. And it was very good. The writing is written in second person, so instead of saying Beck did this, she did this, whatever, he's saying you walked into the bookstore, you did this, and whatever, and it sounds like he's talking to you, which is frightening. And Joe is the most, his character, I don't want to say I liked him, because I didn't like him, but you're in his head, and I kind of felt bad for him, and I felt for him, and sometimes I was like being sympathetic, but at the same time I was like, Julia, stop, you know, this guy is very screwed up and he did a lot of horrible things. And the thing was, is when you were in his head, you thought this was all normal, like he was treating it like it was so normal and casual, all the things he did. And then when you stop reading, you're like, wait, what? That was so horrible. What are you talking about? Like, what, Joe? And then it's like, no, he's normal. And I'm like, no, he's not. He thinks he's so normal and he's not. And it's just, it was fantastic. The characters were interesting. The writing was good. I didn't have many problems with it at all. And sometimes I was super into it, and it was very interesting. And I think it opens up your mind to a lot of things. And yeah, so I did enjoy it. At the back it says, you're going to be sorry when you realize what you made me do. The good news is that I have no regrets. And the sequel, or the second book or whatever, comes out in February, I think. And it's called Hidden Bodies. So interesting. Ooh. And I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. Woo! The books I read in the month. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you stay tuned, because I have 27 minutes of footage that I gotta edit, which is no problem because I love filming these videos and putting them up for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciate it. Leave a comment down below if you've read any of these books or you want to, and I'll see you all very soon with a new video. Bye bye.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek.
We're so sorry, skeletons, you're so misunderstood. You only want to socialize,
but I don't think we should. A spooky, scary skeleton shouts startling shrilly.